First of all, I'd like to say how grateful I am to be invited into this community and to have the opportunity, along with my fellow panelists today, to speak about compassionate eating from the point of view of religion is, I think, might become the favorite part of this conference. Now, is everybody enjoying this conference as much as I have so far? I thought so. Let's move to the presentation, if we can. We'll see how technology serves us today. All right. Why eat a plant-based diet? These are familiar reasons. Health and longevity, environmental issues, thanks to John Robbins and the others who've certainly heightened my awareness of those issues. Global hunger and the distribution or maldistribution of foodstuffs. And then we have two items that, from a Buddhist point of view, are the foundation of why we do this, why we would want to eat compassionately and wisely. From the Buddhist point of view, you start out with the idea that we're all connected, that interdependence is a fact. It's not a theory. And yet, the world that we find ourselves is often a broken world. So there are causes and there are effects, and I'm going to talk a bit about that. The other point is great compassion. Buddhism is certainly not unique in this regard. We're going to hear from the other spokespersons this morning about other religious points of view. But these are the two that I wanted to go into today. Cause and effect. There's a teaching from a sutra called the Flower Adornment, the Huayan Jing, the Avatamsaka Sutra, that says, if one kills, there are two retributions. Well, one is you can lose your human body. That's what they say. This is I'm giving you the straight stuff, the raw milk right from the soybean, right? The karma, the action, and the results of killing beings brings on two retributions. One, a short life, and two, much illness. Now, likewise, if you cherish life, if you foster life, if you create the conditions for other beings to flourish, then what happens is your lifespan extends and you're healthy. So it works both ways. Here's an illustration. This is a poem from a Chan master, meditation master in China in the Tang Dynasty, whose name was Cloud of Vows. And the illustration, we're going to get to that in a minute. There's a cause and an effect in our picture, in our painting. It goes, for countless years the bitter stew of hate goes boiling on. Its vengeful broth is ocean deep, impossible to calm. To learn the cause of so much conflict, terror, and that's a word that we're exquisitely sensitive to, green, orange, red. To learn the cause of so much conflict, terror, hate, and war, listen to the cries at midnight by the butcher's door. Okay, now, where do wars come from? Wars come from, now this is principle, okay? There's an invisible cause and effect. But I think if we stretch our minds, we can see the connection. If we kill the being whose life we force from its body, perhaps for our dinner table, perhaps for some other reason, certainly is not willing to do that. I wouldn't want to give up my thigh for somebody else's lunch, right? And when we do that, there's a hatred. There's an emotional, spiritual reaction to that, which is a hatred. And that hatred is kind of like a toxin in the body. It doesn't go anywhere. It just is there in space. When that becomes, when there's a lot of that all at once, the result boils over in immediate aggression and antipathy, which can then lead to war. So that's the principle. Now, is that how it works in reality? That's what this picture shows us, which I think is a lovely illustration. It's an ugly illustration of the actual principle. Taking the life of the pig can lead to the result of bigger conflict. Okay, cause and effect is one of the main Buddhist principal reasons for eating a vegetarian diet. What about great compassion? This is called Tong Ti Da Bei in Chinese, and the idea is, literally in the Chinese, it's same body, great compassion. The same body that we share. And this is based, again, on very practical, pragmatic vision of the way things are, which is to say the solid parts, the liquid parts, the warm parts, the passages, the air parts in my body are not different in any way from those of any creature that incarnates in a body. So we share that same substance. Now, there's also something else we share. And again, this is maybe Buddhist specific, but we call it by other names in other traditions. There's an awakened nature that we share that in the teaching says it's not different from being to being. We cover it over, we uncover it, it's more awake, it's less awake, but it's the same. So in the midst of that interdependent, connected universe, somebody who is awake to that compassion wants to eat in a way that liberates living beings. So in the Buddhist tradition, we have this practice called liberating life, where we buy animals that are on their way to slaughter, do a ceremony, and chant sutras or the names of awakened beings and let them go. So there's a sutra called the Netta Brahma. It goes deeper into it. And this is, again, straight from the soybean milk. All male beings have been my fathers. All female beings have been my mothers. The interdependence. There is not one being in the six destinies who has not given birth to me in past lives. Hence, all beings have been my parents. Thus, when a person kills and eats any of these beings, by so doing, he slaughters my parents. Now, this is the vision of the Buddhas, awakened sages. Further, that person kills a body that was once my own, for all elemental earth and water have previously served as my body. All elemental fire and water have comprised my physical substance. Therefore, I will always cultivate the practice of liberating beings, and in every life be reborn in the eternally abiding Dharma, and teach others to liberate beings as well. Now, is that strong medicine? Any connection? There's a sense that that thing on the plate that's been French fried, parboiled, fricasseed, baked, steamed, stuffed, actually is part of my own substance. The idea is to see it as no different. And that being the case, I would wish long life to my mother and to everyone else's father. So I would choose not to make that as my foodstuff. Here's another illustration. This is one of the resources that Chinese Buddhism has in such abundance that because it's been in Chinese language, has not been available until we started translating. This is a lovely poem that I enjoy. The picture is a hermit, the kind-hearted hermit. Notice there's a deer in the background, and the hermit is sweeping away the deer's tracks in the snow so that the hunters the next morning won't find it. Around this lonely mountaintop, a myriad peaks revolve. I've come to cultivate ascetics, disciplined resolve. I take my broom and sweep away the deer's tracks in the snow. The deer passed by, but in the morning, hunters will not know. Great compassion, single substance. So if we see those creatures with whom we share those bodies as kin, as related, as connected, then it's much harder to see them as something that we eat for lunch, to see them as a dish or a plate or succulent veal or whatever those names we give it. Okay, so that's the fundamental idea.